Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Wednesday. I hope the week is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Plenty, as always, to talk about today. We're going to discuss Benjamin Sesko as the battle for him heats up. Lots of stories now doing the rounds about other clubs in the running for Benjamin Sesko. And of course, the fact that Leipzig are doing all they can to keep him out of the clutches of those clubs, including Arsenal. So we'll talk about that. We've got to talk about Manchester City and the remarkable news in the last 24 hours or so that they are now suing the Premier League as that whole mess gets messier. So I'll give my thoughts on that. Got lots of questions and comments from you guys as well. Lots of reaction to what we spoke about yesterday, including Eddie Nketiah's price tag and more. Right. First of all, just quickly, I don't know what's going on with StreamYard, who I'm recording this through today, but the slides aren't uploading. It's just processing. The old wheel of death is spinning around and nothing's happening. So I'm not going to have slides. You're going to have to look at this ugly face in widescreen for the whole time of this video. But you're probably going to see my eyes wandering because I still do have the sort of slides in front of me and I'm reading off those because I've got your questions and comments and things like that. And I want to make sure I can give your names out and everything like that. So if you look constantly seeing me look down, it's because I'm reading what's on the screen down here. I'm not actually watching myself on the video. But right, look, we're going to start by talking about Benjamin Sesko. And I mean, it's something we've talked about a lot in the last, well, I don't know, 2-3 weeks or so, but it seems to be heating up now. We know that Arsenal are interested. He's right at the top of the priority list when it comes to signing a new forward or signing anyone this summer. Talks have been ongoing for a long, long time. We know that his agent's been doing the rounds, visiting various clubs in the last 6 months in the lead up to the summer transfer window. And now we're reaching that sort of decision time type thing for him when it comes to Sesko, because we know a decision he wants a decision made. He wants to know what his future sort of holds before the Euros begins, which is in a very short space of time now. And Arsenal are in the running for him. We've seen lots of stories in the last 24 hours or so, really sort of accelerating that Chelsea, shock, surprise, surprise, are also now in the running for him. Manchester United as well, another club where his agent has visited and has had his photo taken in the last few months. But we also know that Leipzig have got a big money new contract on the table for Benjamin Sesko. They don't want him to go. They want him to stay. They want him to sign a new contract. So his release clause, which currently stands at around sort of 60 million euros, can increase massively or even have it taken out completely. And you understand why, because he's a huge talent who all the big clubs in the world are looking at, and they want to try and get as much money for him as possible, which makes perfect sense. So it is a real sort of battle now, I would say. I think if everyone was kind of hoping Arsenal were going to have a clear run on Sesko, I think what we've seen in the last 24 hours or so and all the reports that are starting to circulate certainly suggest that it is not going to be that clean run. By all accounts, Arsenal are in pole position, and those clubs who are also sniffing around Sesko are aware that if he does leave Leipzig, that at the moment his most likely destination is Arsenal. That hasn't changed. But we've seen what his agents had to say recently when he's spoken. He talked about how Leipzig is a really attractive option, signing new contracts. And at his age, it's not about the money, it's about continued development. And, in many ways, if you're looking at it from a Benjamin Sesko point of view, probably staying at Leipzig is the best option right now. And I say that as someone who wants to sign Benjamin Sesko for Arsenal. But from a player's point of view, given his age, given he could well be coming to one of these big clubs and sort of fighting for his place, and you'd be on the bench more and more. But if you stay at Leipzig right now for a couple of years, you're going to play week in, week out. You know the club, you're settled. There's no great upheaval, and you're still going to get a big move in a couple of years' time. So I can absolutely, if he does decide to stay at Leipzig and sign a new contract, I can absolutely understand that decision. I'd be disappointed because I think I've kind of really bought into this Sesko transfer. The longer it's sort of gone on and the more I've watched him and looked at videos of him, actually sort of looked at where his strengths are, I just think, that'd be a really good signing for Arsenal and a really good option for Arsenal to have. So we'll have to wait and see. I hope he doesn't go to Chelsea. I think when you look at it, and I was talking about this with James Bench yesterday in Inside Arsenal Extra Time, when you look at the two projects, or even three projects, if you put Manchester United in there as well, and you put them on the table for Benjamin Sesko, the big thing for Arsenal now, which I think says so much about where the club is and the journey it's been on in the last couple of years, there is no question what is the most attractive proposition right now. From in all areas, in terms of the players you're going to play with, the manager you're going to play with, the competitions you're going to be playing in, just everything when it comes to Arsenal just ticks the boxes right now, and it's such an appealing option for players who have options elsewhere. I think that's such a good thing for Arsenal, because it wasn't long ago that you'd look at that, you'd put Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United going for the same striker, and Arsenal would be at the bottom of that list probably in terms of what was the most appealing option. But now it is absolutely spun on its head. So I hope he chooses Arsenal. I think we're going to find out pretty soon what his decision is going to be, but we shall wait and see. But let me know your thoughts on it all, as always, please, in the comments below. Okay, moving on. We've got to talk about Manchester City now. I mean, it's just absolutely huge news. They've launched a legal action against the Premier League, sparking civil war, as it's been claimed in the newspapers, amongst the Premier League, amongst the English top flight. And it's going to be heard. This hearing is going to be heard on Monday. Probably going to take a couple of weeks or so. Now, what it's about, it's not about the 115 charges. Obviously, that's a completely separate thing. This is about the Premier League when they brought in the new rules about associated party and transaction, the APT rules, which were voted through fairly recently, and that's all about sort of tightening up the regulations over how clubs sort of can get commercial revenue and sponsorship deals with businesses, organisations that are linked to the ownership. So obviously with Abu Dhabi, who own Manchester City, you look at all their sponsorship agreements. I think 4 of their biggest 10 sponsorships are all sort of linked to Abu Dhabi. Obviously you've got Etihad, but you've got other things as well. And it's all about inflated prices and saying that it needs to be regulated so that the sponsorship deals can be sort of ratified and make sure they're at market value and they're not in excess of market value. And it's basically a way of clubs getting around the PSR rules. And Manchester City are fuming about the new rules that have been brought in. And how it's been described. Where was the quote? I just wanted to, what was it? The quote that was used. Tyranny of the majority. That was it. Man City say that it's all discrimination, the way it's been brought in, and that the subject is the tyranny of the majority. That's from the Times article yesterday, who broke the story about it, which just made me laugh. They say that the present rules will limit their ability to buy the best players and force them to charge fans more for tickets. They say more also have to cut spending on youth development, women's football, and community programs, which is obviously absolute and utter rubbish. I mean, my heart bleeds for Manchester City. Obviously, these rules have really hampered them so far in buying the best players and paying the best players the highest wages. Really, really limited them. The whole thing's a joke. I just really hope. I mean, we don't know how this is going to go. There's a lot of talk that Manchester City might win this case. And if they do win this case, then it blows all the current rules in terms of how the Premier League is run out of the water. And suddenly clubs like Manchester City, Newcastle, other clubs like that will be able to basically get these sponsorship deals without having to have them regulated. It can charge what they want for them, and it just totally blows the PSR, everything like that, FFP out the water, and gives these sort of clubs free reign. So it's a really crucial stage in the Premier League, which is obviously a bit of a mess at the moment. Clubs are at war over it all, and it's going to be really interesting what this will mean as well to the 115 charges. If Manchester City win this case, because a lot of those charges are sort of based around their sponsorship agreements in the past. So if they win this case, a lot of people who are close to it think that might help them beat the 115 charges. So there's just so much at stake here when this hearing is held in on Monday, which starts a couple of weeks. But honestly, the more and more these sort of things happen in Manchester City, the more cold I feel towards them. Yes, they're a brilliant football team. Yes, they've got an amazing manager. They've got the superb players. They play great football. Brilliant. But everything about that club now, it just turns me cold. It's why whenever they win anything, it's just like, I don't care. It just genuinely, and I hate to see rival clubs win things. Tottenham win something, it makes me sick to my stomach. Chelsea win something, exactly the same. Even Manchester United. But the fact that I actually wanted Manchester United to win the FA Cup final and beat Manchester City, I think said it all about how I feel about Manchester City. Everything about them just makes me feel cold at the moment. It really, really does. And this, it's just, it's just modern football, isn't it? But it was brilliant. There was that Arsblog was talking about it earlier today, that one of their on Twitter, Man City account said that they were taking on the cartel with this, taking on the Premier League cartel. I mean, it's just so mind-boggling that they can even write something like that. I mean, this is Manchester City, who have won the Premier League 6 times out of the last 7, won it 4 times out in a row, and they're calling others the cartel. They are the cartel when it comes to the Premier League, and it's just unbelievable. The lack of self-awareness about it all is just genuinely remarkable. And we'll have to wait and see what happens on it. But I mean, it's a really, really important moment for the Premier League, this, and the ruling when it comes in the next couple of weeks. I mean, you also look at Manchester City's tactics when it comes to fighting 115, which of course they absolutely deny any wrongdoing in that. And until they're proven guilty, that is exactly it, or not guilty. We'll have to wait and see. But if they could well be found not guilty, and then that's it. But you go back to when UEFA had the charges against them, didn't they? And they said that they were going to. I think it was just one of the big wigs at Man City said he'd rather spend money on 30, or he spent 30 million on as many lawyers as possible to tie the rival lawyers up into so much litigation that it would take them years and years and years. And then you see them doing this just ahead of when the 115 charges hearing is going to be heard, and you just wonder, I mean, what sort of tactic is this? Is this just to take more time away from the Premier League as they build their case for the hearing as it comes? It's such cloudy waters. It really, really is. And honestly, when I saw it yesterday, I was just like, oh, modern football. It's very horrible. Cormac has got in touch from Ireland. It says, does City's move against the Premier League feel like a final throw of the dice for you? If they lose this, then they'll have no chance of surviving the 115 charges, because they're essentially arguing that the very thing they've been charged with is unfair. They've consistently claimed their books are clean, but if their books are clean, then why do they need to challenge this? It just feels to me like their attempt to stop the PL before it gets too late. It feels so desperate. I hope the Premier League lawyers are up for this one better than they did for Arteta's trial. Yeah, I think we're all hoping that. Does it feel like a final throw of the dice? I think it probably does in many ways, because like you said, if they do lose this case, and what that means for them ahead of the hearing for the 115 charges, I mean, you'd think it certainly puts them on the back foot when it comes to that. So if it does feel a little bit like a final throw of the dice, like I said, another sort of distraction tactic, another tactic to try and tie up the Premier League's lawyers and everything into as much work as they possibly can, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's a huge development, massive development. One the Premier League were expecting as well, by all accounts, because when the new APT rules were brought in, they did say at the time to other Premier League clubs that they were expecting one of them to sue. And now that has happened. And that one club is Manchester City. Okay, before I get on some of your questions and comments, just quickly, Gabriel has been back training. I was going to show you a very nice picture of him training for Brazil. Martinelli was training as well. I can't show you it because my slides aren't working, but I'm looking at it and he looks very good and very healthy, and his arm is not in a sling. So really good news for Gabriel. No more sling on his arm. That injury he suffered on the final day of the season isn't going to keep him out of the Copa America, and hopefully he can have a really, really strong tournament for them. Come back and then hit the ground running at the start of the new season. So good injury news when it comes to Gabriel. Right, moving on to some of your questions and comments now. I've got quite a lot of reaction from what we were talking about yesterday. First, my video, then myself and James Benge on Inside Arsenal Extra Time. We're talking about it. We were talking about the valuations for players, but specifically Eddie Nketiah, and the rumours that Fulham are in the running for Nketiah, and maybe 30 million would be the sort of price tag that Arsenal could get. I was saying I think that's absolutely a fair price for Eddie Nketiah, and I was giving my reasons for that yesterday. Lots of you have replied. Ryan Anderson says, if we get 30 million for Eddie, we should take it and run. Ken P291 says, agree about Eddie's valuation. Good explanation. He's a proven goal scorer and would definitely do a great job for a mid-table Prem team. JT162 says, Eddie is better than Arsenal fans give him credit for, but we need better to win the league and other hardware. Give him lots of game times and he will further develop into a proper striker. Time to sell him so both parties can get on with it. Hope Sesko looks at Mudrik's experience with the Blues and understands the better place to be. I'm sure he would do. And yeah, I agree absolutely with your comments there on Eddie. And Teta98 says, 30 million isn't a good price for Eddie. It's the minimum price you'd expect. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure it's a minimum, but look, if Arsenal got more than 30 million for Eddie Nketiah, I'd be delighted. But I definitely think 30 million would be a pretty decent price for Eddie Nketiah. But that's just my opinion. Okay, moving on. Got a question from Samuel here. He says, as I've sadly resigned myself to expecting that both Patino and Beerif will leave this summer, what sort of fees do you think would be reasonable to expect for them both? Perhaps about 30 million combined. I imagine it's well known that there is quality with Patino, but fully depends where he goes. Ideally, we could get around 10 million for him. With Beerif, it's more interesting. His stock is considerably higher, similar to Balogun last season. So do you reckon we could see us getting 20 million plus for him? No, on both counts, I have to say. And I know a lot of you say I devalue players, everything like that. But Arsenal, I'd be genuinely stunned if Arsenal got 20 million plus for Mika Beerif. He had a good half a season, but he had a good half a season in Austria with Sturm Graz. And there's no disrespect to them. And a good half a season with Motherwell before that. There is no way his price tag is going to have gone to 20 million plus, especially with only 1 year left on his contract. And Patino, I don't think Arsenal are going to get around 10 million for Patino. I think Patino it'll be lower than that, potentially half of it, if that, but there will be a very high sort of sell-on clause included in the sort of classic Arsenal deal, which they've done with some of their youngsters at the moment. I'd be very, very surprised. I hope I'm wrong. Again, I hope I'm devaluing Arsenal's players, as many of you say that I do. But if Arsenal are getting 30 million for Beerif and Patino, I'd take back all the stuff I've said about them being bad sellers, because I think that'd be really good business for a pair of them. But I'd be very, very surprised. Now one from LJeff2107. He says, in regards to the 4 homegrown players potentially looking to sell, we should be getting 100 to 105 minimum. Eddie, 30 million. ESR, 30 million. Ramsdale, 30 million. Reece, 15 million. We always sell our guys on the cheap, but with the homegrown quota and the potential, we should defo be aiming for those figures to reinvest. Promoting Wanyeri and Kozia Dubry, if he signs a new deal, would balance some of the squad. What do you think? I think that's fair. Look, if Arsenal got that for those 4, I think you couldn't really complain. I think you're making your money back on Ramsdale, which is absolutely, again, the bare minimum. And they should be getting more from Ramsdale, to be honest, than just your money back for him, given how he's improved as a goalkeeper since he came to Arsenal. I think they'll struggle to do that, though, given the way the market is going to go. I think Eddie and ESR, 30 million, I think is absolutely 100% fair, as I've said, for both of them. Still, they're not into the final year of their deals yet. I think ESR is a wonderful talent, as you all know. 30 million, I think, would be fair. And Eddie, as I said, 30 million would be fair. So, yeah, I'm not sure 15 million for Reece, maybe slightly less than that. But if they can get 100 million for those 4 players, then I think they've had a decent summer if they sell all of them. And here's one from C Lord. It says, do you not think your ideal window, and this is what myself and James Benjamin, we sort of did our Inside Arsenal Extra Time show yesterday. If you haven't seen it already, it's down below. We can listen to it in the podcast. And we sort of went through our perfect summers for Arsenal. We were looking at who could be sold, who could be loaned, who could come in, who could get new contract offers. And I gave my list of players. And C Lord has replied to that. He says, do you not think that your ideal window is leaving us a bit light on defenders, Charles? Selling Zinni, Tierney and Tavares and signing no defenders has us at 6, while 4 of those can play multiple positions. I'd have thought we need 7 defenders at least. Potentially, I don't think Tierney and Tavares matter because, look, they weren't even at the club last season. Obviously, they're out on loan. I don't think that I wasn't really sort of factoring them into the squad. Zinchenko, I did say when I was going through it yesterday that I had a question mark next to Zinchenko. The only way I'd sell him is Arsenal got a really good offer for him. And I think if they did sell Zinchenko, then I agree. I think they probably would have to sign another defender because they would potentially be a little bit short, even though, of course, Timber would be back and fit. Arsenal didn't have him at all last season, so having him back, it's that cliche I know of like a new signing, but it basically is because Arsenal signed him and then we haven't seen him since they signed him. So he is basically a new signing. And so he comes back into the mix, which would be fantastic. You've still got sort of Tommy, Kivior, Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, all of those can play in, as you say, sort of multiple positions, or most of them can anyway. But I think, if Zinchenko was to go, then maybe, you'd have to replace him with another defender in the squad just to balance it out a little bit more and protect yourselves in case of any injuries or anything like that. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching or for listening. Everyone, appreciate your time as always. Again, apologies you've had to stare at this ugly mug for the in big widescreen for the entire show. But I don't know what was going on with StreamYard and the slides today, but hopefully it'll be fixed for tomorrow's show. Anything you want me to discuss tomorrow, you know what to do. Get into the comments and leave them. I'll pull some of them together and get them included in tomorrow's show. I'm off to play golf now, as you can see by my little fancy Tiger Woods logo. Off to hack my way around the golf course for the afternoon. But I hope you have a great day wherever you are, and I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. Thanks for watching. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.